norms, which when we get to the slide on that, we'll kind of explain more. So math is one form of standardized testing we do. The other one is the ISAT, which is one that you hear about more often. That's given at all Illinois public schools. It's math and reading grades 3 through 8, science in grades 4 and 7. And then that's what the state uses to determine what's called AYP. You'll hear those initials a lot, stand for adequate yearly progress. That was part of the whole No Child Left Behind initiative. And basically every year, the bar that schools must reach gets higher and higher. 2 years ago, it was at 77%. Last year, it was 85%. This year, it's 92% is that we need to reach. And the goal was that by 2013-14, it would hit 100%.
85% of what?
85% of the students need to meet or exceed in the ISAT. Meaning that they've kind of set this bar that we need to get students over, and it's 85% of the students need to have gotten over that bar.
Or else what?
There's a number of sanctions that happen to schools that don't meet AYP, and it gets a little more progressive as the years go on. First one is if you are in a district in which there are a number of schools, a lot of times there's a force. They have to allow you to choose a different school. So if your student is in a school that didn't meet AYP and down the road there's one that did, they have to kind of open up the gates to allow that to happen. Ultimately, the state will come in and kind of work with you on some things like that. Pardon me?
That you made your curriculum,
Right.
if you're determined after 2 or 3 years to not meet AYP, you've got to make modifications, documented modifications to your curriculum and what you're offering to students in order.
Today the No Child Left Behind was changed. Does that impact what you're doing at all?
Well, it hasn't yet trickled down, so we don't know what that means to us. So at this point, we're still in this mode because this is what we have to work with right now. I know there's a discussion of waivers, that there's a whole lot of things going on right now that...
local power or something?
Well, it's the entire state is, all the states are sort of, obviously they're struggling because 85% was a high level, 92% is a very high level, 100% is an extremely high level for you to have to have 100% of your students meeting and exceeding, having reached this bar. And so there are states saying, we're getting to that point where there needs to be some discussions about what to do with this law to make it a high goal, but one that's a reasonable goal, an achievable goal. Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is in practice, as I understand it, there's there's a million reasons kids don't do well. Families, society. There's a lot of other factors that go into whether or not kids are going to do good in school, but a lot of underperforming schools, as I understand it, all that happens when, say, a parent would say, I'd like to put my child somewhere else, is that school says, hey, we don't have room for you, and that's the end of the discussion. So de facto, there really is there's nothing you can do. And not so much at a school like ours, which performs pretty well, but say something like a Zion or something, or some of the schools are more challenged, there really is nothing they can really do. Is that accurate or fair?
Well, as Pat pointed out, there definitely is there's a great deal of push, and I can tell you that every school feels the pressure immensely from AYP, and whether it's AYP within the state of Illinois or the TAS in Texas or whatever else. All states right now are in some form of this kind of a system, and there is a great deal of pressure for us to look very carefully at what we are doing to try and meet these ever-increasing benchmarks. And so, and then there are sanctions, as Pat mentioned too, that come through that we have to really look at ourselves. I think schools that don't make AYP do it automatically, but the state says we got to also.
But it is imperative still. So if you're having trouble, the state is real likely to provide somebody to come in, to train your teachers, to work with you. So you have a lot of things you have to do if you haven't done it, and the state will support you in doing it, and then at the same time, they'll sanction you and try to if they can't. So they're trying to figure out, but if they hit a number and it says 92, and 80% of the districts don't make it, they can't take 80 over. So they're still struggling with, but they're doing both. They really are hiring people who go into districts and look at what they're doing and try to help them get better. At the same time saying, if a parent wants to send their kid to one of these private vendors that teach reading or math, pool on math, and you haven't been successful and you have Title I funds, you have to set aside a given percentage of those Title I funds for parents to be able to tag on to it, to send their kids to a program that may be able to do what you weren't able to do. So there's a mix of it.
So in the next dozen slides or so, we've organized them, just giving you an organizational format here. First by the subject area, and then within each subject area, you'll see the data with our MAP test. You'll see the percentage of student making their growth target for the last 3 years, and then you'll also see, and this was the first time it was available to us, the growth compared to nationally normed growth. So if you have 75% of your students at the grade level meet their target grit, what does that look like nationally? So does everybody have 75%? Do they have? Anyway, so you're going to see that. Along with that, you're going to also see each of the subject areas. If the subject tests it, you'll see our ISAT results, the state assessment from 9, 10, 10, 11, and then you'll see the state averages for 10, 11.
Pat,
Yep.
you said the target growth. What are we looking at target growth?
So Ted was talking to you about what MAP test is, and MAP, when you take your test and adjust to the questions, I know this, okay, it'll get a little harder, I don't know this, I'll get a little easier. Once they've determined your level, let's say it's a 170, so the levels range from maybe 130 to maybe 270, K through 8. All right, so that's probably a fair number to give you. And if they determine that you're 153 and you're a first grader, they're going to, based on that, they're going to shoot a target for that person that is probably in the first grade level, probably about a 15-point gain, somewhere in there. The lower the grade level, the more likely the RIT growth is to occur. So my first grader that was at a 153 needs to be at a 168 at the end of the year. So their RIT target should, and if they do, then they've met their growth target.
And what we're after is every one of our kids making a year's growth. And so the number they'll give us, they'll say if your kid is 168 and they came in at this 150 score, they will have made a year's growth. And so your students who are achieving really well, maybe 3 years ahead of the other kids in the class, they still have to make a year's growth. The students who are achieving less well, and maybe have been achieving less well for the last 4 years, are still expected to make at least a year's growth. So the goal the principals, teachers all have is all of our students, regardless of where they come in, making at least a year's growth every year.
All right, so here's a busy chart. So I'll explain to you for a minute what it says in here. So this is math, and this is the first, so the orange, it's really hard to, so we have orange, blue, and red is the third color, each one of those three together there. So the orange is 08-09 school year. The blue is 9-10.
Thank you.
And the red is 10-11. And down at the bottom is the grade level. On the left-hand side, you have the percentage. So if you look at this, ideally, you're getting better every year. Okay, ideally, the percentage of kids meeting their target growth will get better each year. So you can look, I'm going to speak to K4 here. So as I look at K4, I have each of my grade levels, K through 4, on an upward climb in math, with the exception of first grade. So first grade had about a 7% decline in the percentage of kids meeting their target growth in math, on math. And, good, go. I'm gonna explain more. There's a couple more slides coming up on math, so I'll explain more.
And then, so 5 through 8 is ours here at North Prairie. Last year was our first year with 5th grade, and just, we had a good year of bringing 5th grade over, although as we look through this, I'm gonna just tell you straight out that 5th grade didn't have its best academic year, unfortunately. So 6th and 7th grade overall pretty good. 8th grade we slid down just a little bit, but in all 3 of them you can see we're pretty close to 70% of our students meeting that growth target. So again, the question that came up is that good? Is it 70% of the kids making their growth target? Is that good? Is that bad? And there was a study then by NWA that helped us to understand that. So when they look nationally at the growth of students, this is where we fell. So 5 through 8, again, 5th grade did not make very good growth. That was not very good, but 6, 7, and 8, we all fell into the top quartile. That purple line across there means the top 25%, and then Pat's, I'll let you throw up.
K1, they're not at 0. It's not available. So kindergarten, first grade assessment, that test has only been available about 4 years. It's they get most of their tests auditorially, so they're listening to their tests and answering their questions through it. So there aren't as many districts that have done K1 testing in that 4-year span for them to have normed data for us. So that's why kindergarten, first grade, we don't have a growth target. This is just for the growth target, the percentage. So in 2nd and 3rd grade, it doesn't get too much better than that, quite honestly. That's pretty amazing stuff, that the percentage that our growth in learning is pretty close to 2nd to none there in 2nd and 3rd grade. 4th grade, while it's at the 50th percentile in terms of where we meet nationally, we've been working real hard in 4th grade. We've been tweaking, we've been modifying and changing it. As I said on the slide before that, it's had improvement each year for the last 4 years, the growth in terms of that. We've done a lot of different things in terms of trying to address that and best meet their needs, and we'll